My name is Kelly Berry, and I'm a part-time MBA student at ESMT. I live in Berlin, and I've been here for about a year. My husband and I moved here from New York City because we wanted just a change in lifestyle. I was enrolling in the part-time program as well. He had the flexibility to move with his company. And we'd been thinking about coming to Europe for a bit, and Berlin sounded like a great place to kind of settle.
My name is Garcia. I'm originally from the United States, and I'm a part-time MBA student at ESMT Berlin, and I'm studying innovation. In my work life, I'm in the renewable energy industry, and as it relates to electric vehicles, as the head of energy storage projects at the Mobility House here in Munich, where we're making technology and projects to enable the energy transition.
You know, I did my undergrad, so I'm American, so I did my undergrad in the US, 4 years from 18 to 22. And I just, I've been working in the workforce since then. So for 10 years, I've been in the workforce. And for me, I wasn't really super excited about getting out of the workforce and being a full-time student again. I like to have a lot going on, a lot of different things as well. And I felt like a part-time MBA program was a better fit for me because I could be a student, but also be working. I as well had my son last year. So that was also, I think when I enrolled in the part-time MBA program, I didn't know I was pregnant at that time, but I knew I could be becoming pregnant. So I thought it was just a better idea. I could manage a PT MBA. I probably couldn't have managed a full-time. So there were a lot of factors, but for me, it was what was most attractive was the ability to do the MBA, but also kind of wear other hats as well, meanwhile.
The industry that I'm in is experiencing really, really big growth. We've kind of been waiting for what you call the hockey stick for a long time, and it finally came. And the winners are kind of being defined, and the energy transition is being defined. And I didn't feel like I could sit on the sidelines and take a year break from that. Also, I saw myself going into more leadership and management, and I felt that being able to learn about that at the same time that I could try it out would be a really powerful experience, and it has been. So ESMT was the only school I applied to, mostly because when I was doing a lot of research, I felt that ESMT was a really pragmatic school. And by that, I mean that I felt that subjects were taught because they are valuable and because they are something that will be useful and is trending for the next few years. And instead of simply things being taught because they've been taught for 50 years. For example. And I could see that through the heavy focus on analytics and innovation, and that really made me interested in it.
I really liked the program. I had a great interview experience as well with some of the admissions people. I spoke to, throughout my interview process, one of the admissions people suggested I reach out to a current student, and I connected with one of their current students who was also American. She was actually in the full-time MBA program. So we talked a little bit about that because I was considering the full-time program for a couple of minutes. And speaking to her really kind of reassured me that it's a great school, it's a great program. But also, she was like, the full-time is really, really full-time. And that also kind of solidified, my desire to do the part-time MBA program. So it was great to get firsthand knowledge and experience from her, and that she shared her experience with me so that I could make a more informed decision. But essentially, I think, it's highly ranked. It's well known and recognized in Germany and around Europe. And they offered a program that's really unique. So the fact that it's blended, mostly online, but then some in-person elements as well. Because when I enrolled in 2020, September of 2020, the pandemic was still very much present, right? And restrictions were very much present. And for the first year of my program, it was touch and go whether or not we're going to be able to meet in person. And so this program, because so much of it's online and they were able to kind of very easily configure the residencies or the in-person learnings to be online as well. And I don't think I lost, I mean, of course, there's like the connecting with the fellow students in person, but in terms of like an actual education, I don't think we had to sacrifice much because of the nature of the program, it's already built out in a way to facilitate online learning. So the transition for them, I think, was very easy. And I think we, benefited from that as students. Yeah, I think what I find most rewarding about a part-time MBA program is that you can really kind of fit it into your schedule. You don't have to stop everything in order to get your MBA. You can do it on top of work or being a mother or a parent or, whatever you may be doing in your life. So I love that I didn't, have to kind of put everything else on pause and go back to school, and that it could, fit into my schedule. The challenge about that, of course, is that you have to then really motivate yourself. You have to manage your time really well, because you're like kind of self-managing, right? So you don't have professors expecting XYZ from you, every day. But if you meet with your team every week, you check in, you do the work little by little on top of whatever else you have going on in the evenings or on the weekends. But the self-paced program style I found really, really great. And I think, life happens, and there were definitely periods where, you're dealing with personal stuff or work stuff. And I think at that moment, it is really hard to stay motivated because it's just one more thing you have to kind of do. Staying motivated and staying disciplined, I would say. Staying disciplined is rather difficult at times when you just have a lot going on in your life.
I would say there were definitely challenges. I knew there would be. That when I went out to my mentors and talked to my friends and my significant other about kind of going down this path, this journey, that was the biggest thing that they said. They said, watch out because you are going to have no free time. That was not the case. It's not that I had no free time, but it definitely, the MBA took a lot of time. So it wasn't easy. It took some patience from my colleagues and my friends, especially my significant other. And I think on the side of the benefits were that my colleagues and I all got immediate benefits from what I was learning. So for example, some of the strategy frameworks that I learned, I was able to immediately use, and we used them to formulate the strategy for a big part of our business moving forward.
So I believe they say the hybrid format is about 20% in-person learning and 80% online learning. So the idea is that we meet in Berlin on campus every 4 to 5 weeks for a 2.5 day kind of intensive or residency where we get to have in-person lectures and classes given by our professors, and we get to kind of, mix and mingle and get to know each other on a student level. And it's really, really great. I think the first, maybe there were 3 or 4 that we weren't able to have in person because of COVID. This is probably 2020. But recently, the last year, I'd say, we had all of the residencies in person on campus. And it's just really nice to be able to get together with our classmates. We definitely, I would say, are doing a pretty good job of maintaining close relationships, even though we are doing the PT-MBA program and everyone has their own lives and their own families and their own work. But when we get together, we're really, we're social and we're connecting, we're working on group projects, and you really do feel like a student again, which is nice and really refreshing.
So the hybrid experience, it was comprised of lectures and material that was kind of tailor-made for the online setting, together with online lectures in real time, and then of course periodic really intense 3-day residencies where you have hours of classes. For working professionals like me, the online portions were a really good format to bring flexibility, but it didn't mean that you weren't investing very much time. There was definitely a big investment, and the format was very good for going back and seeing things that you didn't understand again. So I really liked that. The other part of equation was a lot of these group projects that we did. So most of us were remote for everything but the residencies, but we had to coordinate weekly meetings, sometimes a few times a week, to achieve our goals in these group projects. So there was definitely within these teams that were shuffled around every so often, there was definitely a feeling of we're all in it together, and that we had to come together as a group and achieve these project goals.
I think Berlin is a great city to live in. I think it's an especially great city to be a student in. There's a lot going on. It's very international. I mean, I'm American, and unfortunately my German isn't fantastic. It's pretty basic, but you really can get around and like speaking the bare minimum. Of course, I encourage everyone to learn German, and I will learn German too eventually, but time and capacity. But I think it's super international. It's really a beautiful city, especially in the spring, summer, and fall. The winters can be a little bit rough, but it is what it is. And it's just, I think it's a technology hub as well. Like there's tons and tons of startups here. I think it's a great place to look for work post-graduation. And there's just really an amazing work-life balance, I think, coming again from the US, moving to Europe, and probably generally in Europe, but especially in Germany. I feel like, and of course it depends on the industry and the job, but I do feel like, they take their holidays very seriously. You get a lot of PTO, and there's a lot of added benefits as well that companies here offer surrounding like your mental health. And there just seems to be kind of a respect for boundaries, right? Which is, I think, from an employee perspective, really great. So I love it. I love that it's a very family-oriented city. It's also very affordable, I think, compared to a lot of other European capitals. So if you are going to do the full-time program and you're not going to be working for a year, I think livability is, you can still have a great quality of life, even, though you may be living off of savings or a stipend or scholarship or whatever. So I would highly recommend Berlin. It's really great.
I would say that in Munich, the biggest challenge is also the biggest advantage, which is that we were a relatively smaller class size. So, for example, while for group projects and things like that, we did end up mixing between Berlin and Munich. So I do feel like I have a strong network with the Berlin people. During the residencies, there were times when there were very few of us in the class. And that means, number one, that you get a lot of time with the professors and you learn a lot. That also means that you can't hide. So if there's something that you don't feel so confident about, or maybe you had a couple too many beers the night before at a networking event, then you're going to have a tough time. And I felt like in that environment, I learned so much and really had great, almost one-on-one time with a lot of these professors sometimes. But at the end of the day, because you're right there, right in the spotlight with only a few other people, your head kind of hurts.
I would say it's exposed me to a lot of new sectors and industries, and given me a lot of skills that helped in my transition. So as I mentioned before, I was kind of in the same industry for the entirety of my career, like 8-9 years before starting my MBA program. And it was a very niche industry, and it kind of, the longer I was in it, the harder I felt like it was going to become for me to ever get out of it. And to transition into a new role in a new industry. And so I do definitely feel like it was the right decision to get my MBA, because it just gave me more marketability in terms of finding work as well. It exposed me. So now I'm still working I'm working in travel tech now. I'm working for Airbnb. And I don't know if I would have gotten the position I am in before my MBA I mean, who's to know? I could have, but the MBA has really given me like a new vocabulary. It's given me a more analytical mindset. Like we deal a lot with data at Airbnb, and so, and in all tech companies, you're going to deal a lot with data. And we never touched data in my old industry. I mean, it was really like kind of old school, and so yeah, it's just, you know, the education has really kind of caught me up to speed in put me in a place where I can feel comfortable having a conversation in the tech world, even though I come from like a much more traditional, much more old school industry.
Yeah, I would say for me, I always thought that I wanted to do things that I thought were big and had high impact, but I don't really think that I saw a clear path there. And I think that the MBA has really opened my eyes to how much you can potentially do and all the ways that I can add value. It's not just engineering, it's not just technical things, it's a whole range of things. And it's kind of in that same vein, it's helped me to know enough about a broad range of topics that I know where to dive in, where I need to understand something in greater depth. So I wouldn't say that at the end of the MBA, I'm a finance expert or an operations expert, but when someone from one of those places or from one of those teams is talking to me, I know what they're talking about, and I know the right questions to ask and where to look for answers. Another thing that cannot be understated is the quality of the network. The quality of the people in my class has been really, really excellent. Everyone seems to have been selected for being impressive, really smart, and then also generally just good people. And I think that's a really important part of what's made the experience so interesting for me.
Well, actually, I'll steal from one of my professors. We got pretty great advice at the beginning of our program. And basically that, you know, the 2-year part-time MBA program, you're doing it on top of everything else that's going on in your life. And you're going to have highs and lows, right? And when you start your program, it's likely going to be a high. You're super excited to be there. You're excited to get going, get started, learn as much as you can, take away as much as you can. And then, of course, as the program goes on, life happens. You have moments that you're dealing with a lot. The last thing you want to do or have time to do is focus on schoolwork. Maybe you don't dedicate as much time to the readings or the coursework that you did at the beginning. But then, of course, you know, there will be classes you love and feel really engaged with, and then classes you find maybe less relevant to your professional lives. And so I think, just stay committed, right? Because, and don't be surprised when you have those lows, because they're inevitable over 2 years. And yeah, and I guess just keep going and know that graduation will come and it'll be worth it. And you'll have made a lot of friendships and learned a bunch of new skills, and you'll miss it probably at one point.
I would say be prepared for a really intense experience. I think if you chose a part-time MBA because you think it's going to be easy, that's not a correct decision. But you will learn a really wide range of topics, and you're going to be pushed outside of your comfort zone, and you're going to step outside of your expertise. That means that in your groups, especially in your group projects and with other people, you will learn when to rely on someone else's expertise, and figure out also that sometimes there's no one in the room with expertise, and how to come together as a group and to achieve goals that seemed a little bit crazy. The other thing that I would tell them is that it seems like it's going to take a long time, but we just had our last residency, and it feels both like I look back at the times when at the beginning of the program, when it felt like it was going to last forever, and this was just an enormous mountain to climb, and I felt like I'm never going to make it to the end. And then now I look back and think, wow, that went so quickly, and I feel like I learned so much, and it was such an intense experience. But yeah, it's just very strange to see how far we've come.